Slušatelji, Valovi Slovo radio postaje Mir Međugorje, emisija Hodočasnik Kraljice Mira. S vama su danas i na početku našeg današnjeg druženja vas pozdravljaju tehnički i glazbeni realizator Anton Vasilj, prevoditeljica će biti Marija Pervan, a ja sam urednica i voditeljica emisije Juanita Dragičević. Danas u studiju radio postaje Mir Međugorje imamo jednog zaista zanimljivog gosta, hodočasnika koji nam dolazi iz Sjedinjenih Američkih Država, točnije iz San Franciska. Riječ je o mladom čovjeku koji će nam govoriti najprije o sebi, o svom životu prije prvog dolaska ovdje u Međugorje, koje je bilo prošle godine, dakle za 40. obljetnicu Gospinih ukazanja. On se prošle godine vratio vjeri, vratio Bogu, ove godine se čak i krizmao i evo ga ponovno s nama u ovom svetom mjestu ovdje u Međugorju. Sretan što je promijenio svoj život, sretan što će danas o tome svjedočiti svima vama, dragi slušatelji, koji ste sada uz program radio postaje Mir Međugorje. Dovoljan razlog u sljedećim minutama ostati uz naš program i emisiju Hodočasnik Kraljice Mira. Pa evo na početku, Odi, dobro nam došao i možda da nam se predstaviš, da kažeš par riječi o sebi i odakle nam dolaziš.
Odi, welcome. Please tell us something about yourself.
My name is Adrian Friels and I reside from San Francisco, California. I am 40 years old this year. I am a child of 8. I come from...
Moje ime je Adrian Friels. Dolazim iz San Francisco, Kalifornija i imam 40 godina. Dolazim iz jedne obitelji od 8 djece.
I'm born of an immigrant mother and a father from the States.
Moj otac je iz Sjedinjenih Američkih Država, a majka je imigrant.
I come from a loving yet broken family.
Dolazim iz razrušenog doma.
I grew up in a very not safe neighborhood.
Odrastao sam u jako opasnom susjedstvu.
At a young age, I started experimenting with drugs and alcohol.
Još kao jako mlad počeo sam eksperimentirati sa drogom i alkoholom.
To combat and deal with the traumas of my life.
Da bi se mogao nositi sa traumama iz mog života.
I had a loving family, but love wasn't spoken of. It was shown in a tough way.
Imao sam obitelj koja me volila, ali nije se pričalo o ljubavi. Ljubav se pokazivala na jedan drugačiji način.
From the age of, say, 13 to 20, did every drug ever made.
Od moje 13. godine pa do 20. godine probao sam recimo svaku drogu koja postoji.
Due to a lot of judgment from Christians, I left the church very, very young.
Ja kao jako mlad napustio sam crkvu jer su me mnogi kršćani osuđivali.
And because of that, it pushed me deeper into my drug use.
Onda me to opet još više gurnulo, još dublje u korištenje droga.
Because I didn't feel like I belonged or was wanted.
Nisam osjećao da pripadam negdje ili da me netko želi.
And in drugs, I found consolation.
I u drogi sam pronalazio utjehu.
I thought that masking and not dealing with how I felt and who I was easier than turning to spiritual direction, because I didn't think that was an option.
Mislio sam da je stavljanje maska, a ne rješavanje problema, bolja solucija. Nisam mislila da se mogu vratiti spiritualnost i duhovnost.
And in doing so, I found the occult.
I radeći to, pronašao sam kult.
For 25 years, I was a practicing curandera, which is a Catholic witch.
Po 20 godina sam bio u jednom kultu koji je katolički kult.
And I didn't think there was anything wrong with it.
I nisam mislio da je išta pogrešno u tome.
I didn't do anything evil or curse anybody. I did things that I thought were projects of light and love.
Nisam mislio da radi nešto krivo, nisam nikoga proklinjao. Nisam radio ništa što je suprotno svjetlu i ljubavi.
And in doing so, I opened a lot of portals and doorways for Satan and all of his minions.
A radeći to otvorio sam mnoge portale da Satana uđe u moj život.
And I was not aware of it, but for a very long time I walked hand in hand with Lucifer and all of his evil, evil beings.
I nisam toga ni bio svjestan, ali jako dugo sam hodao rukom pod ruku sa Luciferom.
Which pushed me deeper into drugs and further away from my friends and family.
Što me gurnulo još dublje u drogu i odvuklo dalje od moje obitelji i mojih prijatelja.
But never once did my friends and family abandon me or make me feel like I was doing the wrong thing, I guess.
Ali moja obitelj i moji prijatelji me nikad nisu odbacili.
As troubled as I was or my life was, my family loved me and was there for me.
Moja obitelj me jako volila kad sam imao 12 godina.
Even if I didn't feel like they were always beside me, even if from afar.
Iako ja to nisam možda osjećao, ali oni su tu bili pored mene.
And little did I know at the time, so is our Lord.
Nisam bio ni svjestan, tako je i Gospodin bio pored mene.
I went through school and I was great at school, I was great with people.
Išao sam u školu, bio sam dobar u školi, bio sam dobar u kontaktu s ljudima.
And along the lines, I became best friends with my father, who I was not raised with.
I usput sam postao dobar prijatelj sa svojim ocem s kojim nisam zapravo odrastao.
We had a lot in common in regards to drugs.
Imali smo mnogo toga zajedničkog vezano za drogu.
He was not a good father, but he was an amazing man.
Nije bio dobar otac, ali je bio odličan, fantastičan čovjek.
With the faith of a saint.
Sa vjerom sveca.
And ironically, he was Protestant.
I ironično za reći, bio je protestant.
He showed me, unbeknownst to me, how to talk with God and love like Jesus did.
Pokazao mi je kako vjerovati, pokazao mi je kako ljubiti kao Isus.
4 years I spent getting to know my person who was my father.
4 godine sam upoznavao oca kao osobu.
And ironically, he led me towards Jesus.
I ironično, on me doveo
As
Isusu.
much as I fought, kicked, and screamed.
Koliko god sam se ja borio, vrištao i odbijao to.
I still used drugs for a very long time,
Jako dugo nakon toga sam još uvijek koristio droge,
specifically crystal meth,
osobito crystal meth,
because in the gay community in which I was and am a part of, it runs rampant and nobody talks about it.
U mojoj zajednici niko ne priča o tome, ali jako puno se koristi ta droga.
I didn't talk about it. It was a lot of years of denial and struggle with a smile.
Nisam puno o tome pričao, bilo je puno borbi u meni, ali sve sa smiješkom.
It brought me to suicide,
Dovelo me do trenutka u kojem sam razmišljao o ubojstvu, samoubojstvu,
institution,
do institucija
and a lot of very dark nights.
i jako puno mračnih, tamnih noći.
And it pushed me further into the cult.
I gurnulo me dublje u kult,
But yet I thought nothing was wrong.
ali ja još uvijek nisam mislio da je nešto pogrešno.
I thought life was bad, but it was okay.
Smatrao sam da je život loš, ali je okej.
The entire time, something was missing,
Cijelo to vrijeme nešto je nedostajalo,
but I didn't know what.
ali ja nisam znao što je to.
So I continued along this line for a good 20 years, 25 years.
Nastavio sam ovim putem nekih dobrih 20-25 godina.
Just doing what we Americans do, which is work, buy, consume.
Radio sam ono što mi Amerikanci radimo. Radio, kupovao i konzumirao.
I thought I was helping people when I was doing protection spells or any kind of casting, as we called it.
Mislio sam da pomažem ljudima kad sam radio bilo kakav egzorcizam, radio kultu.
The only thing I was helping was Lucifer grasp his hold on not only me, but the people I introduced him to.
A jedino što sam radio je zapravo sam pomagao Luciferu da uhvati mene, zgrabi mene, a i također i ljude koje sam približavao njemu.
In doing all of that, I started to hear voices.
I radeći sve ovo počeo sam čuti glasove.
To the outside world, I was a happy, charismatic, carefree, loving person.
vanjskom svijetu bio sam otvoren, veseo, karizmatičan čovjek.
On the inside, I was broken and just a shell of a man.
A iznutra sam bio slomljen i jako plitak čovjek.
I started hearing things that were horrific screams of torture that I now know were either people in purgatory or hell.
Počeo sam čuti glasove koji su bili strašni krikovi. Sad znam da su to bili ljudi ili u čistilištu ili u paklu.
I spent many years, days, wandering, searching for these voices who were screaming for help.
Proveo sam dane i godine razmišljajući, tražeći te glasove koji su vrištali za pomoć.
Of course, I listened to the doctors when they told me it was all in my head,
Naravno da sam slušao doktore koji su mi rekli da je to sve u mojoj glavi,
that none of it was real, it was all drug induced.
da to ništa nije stvarno, da je to sve samo droga i ono što koristim.
So instead of bending my knee and pray,
I umjesto da padnem na koljena i da molim,
I casted more spells.
ja sam radio i više tih egzorcizama
And did more drugs.
i koristio više droge.
This continued for deep into my 30s,
To se sve nastavilo do mojih kasnih 30-ih
and the voices got worse.
i glasovi su postali sve gori, strašniji.
The drugs became stronger,
Droga je postajala jača
and I eventually ended up in a hospital with kidney failure.
i na posljedku sam završio u bolnici, a zakazao mi je bubreg.
My dad went into a coma,
Moj tata je završio u komi
and I blamed God.
i ja sam krivio Boga.
For weeks, I thought I'd lost my father. The doctors told me he died.
Tjednima sam mislio da sam izgubio oca. Moj doktor je rekao da je umro.
Thankfully, none of that was true at the time,
Bogu hvala, ništa to nije bila istina u to vrijeme,
but it definitely sent me over the edge.
ali zasigurno me je gurnulo preko ruba.
I entered rehab for the first time,
Ušao sam započeo sam rehabilitaciju po prvi put,
and the doctors prescribed more medications
a doktori su mi pripisali još više lijekova
that worked for a small period of time
koji su djelovali samo na neko kratko vrijeme,
until they didn't.
a onda više nisu.
And then started seeing things,
Tad sam počeo viđati stvari,
dark things.
tamne stvari.
The screams then became voices of kindness and solitude.
A glasovi su postali glasovi, ljubazni glasovi, suosjećajni glasovi.
That seemed helpful at the time,
I to je djelovalo kao da mi pomaže u to vrijeme.
which just drove me closer to drugs and darkness.
I opet me to dovuklo još bliže drogi i tami.
My father woke up
Moj otac se probudio
and told me he saw me when he was in his coma,
i rekao mi je da me je vidio dok je bio u komi,
which is really weird because I dreamed of him every night,
što je jako čudno jer ja sanjam o njemu svake noći
and we talked every night.
i svake noći mi pričamo.
And he remembered the conversations we had,
I on se sjećao razgovora koje smo imali.
which I thought, wow, the spells are working.
I ja sam mislio, ova čaranja zapravo pomažu.
I was so wrong,
Bio sam tako u krivu,
but I didn't care.
ali nije mi bilo važno.
I had my friend back.
Dobio sam svog prijatelja nazad.
The drugs that doctors prescribed stopped working.
Lijekovi koje su liječnici prepisali su prestali djelovati.
And this time, instead of out of pain, out of happiness, I did more drugs.
A ovaj put zbog boli i da bi bio sretan, koristio sam ponovo drugu drogu.
I got really sad and lonely, even though I had my father back and I didn't understand why.
Postao sam jako tužan, jako usamljen, iako mi se vratio moj otac. Ja to nisam mogao razumjeti zašto.
My mother told me, in her mind, I was already dead.
Mama mi je rekla, u njenoj glavi ja sam već mrtav.
She had picked out my casket.
Ona je već izabrala moj kovčeg.
She knew that if I didn't choose differently, that I was going to die, and it was easier for her to just accept that fate then.
Ona je znala ako se ne promijenim, ako ne odaberem drugi put, da je to, ću definitivno umrijeti i bilo je lakše prihvatiti tu sudbinu.
All I heard was, she didn't care if I lived or died.
A ja, sve što sam čuo je bilo, nije joj bilo bitno je li živim ili sam mrtav.
Which was so far from the truth.
A to je bilo tako daleko od prave istine.
So I started spiraling down,
Počeo sam padati dublje
and I was losing my mind.
i počeo sam gubiti svoj razum.
Nothing the doctors did helped.
Ništa što su doktori govorili nije pomagalo.
All of the love my friends, my father, and my mother and her family showed me,
Sva ljubav koju su moji prijatelji, moj otac, moja majka, moja obitelj davali,
it didn't matter.
nisu bili bitni.
I felt like I was completely alone.
Ja sam se osjećao potpuno sam.
So I decided in a hospital bed one day
Odlučio sam jednog dana u bolesničkoj postelji
that it was time to go back to rehab.
da je vrijeme da se vratim ponovo na rehabilitaciju.
Before I did that,
Prije nego što sam to napravio,
I got high again.
ponovno sam se nadrogirao.
I came across a gang fight
Naišao sam na jednu tučnjavu od 2 bande
and called the police to report it.
i pozvao sam policiju da prijavim.
When the police arrived,
Kad je stigla policija,
9 police beat me almost to death.
9 policajaca me je tuklo, prebilo skoro na smrt.
Telling me I deserved to die,
Govorili su mi da zaslužujem smrt,
that I was an abomination for being gay.
da sam otrov zato što sam gej.
They asked me my name,
Pitali su me za moje ime.
and when I told them,
Kad sam im rekao,
they laughed and said, "That's not your name," and hit me some more.
smijali su se, rekli nije to tvoje ime i onda su me udarali više.
They tased me,
Spržili su me strujom,
they hit me with billy clubs.
tukli su me sa palicama.
Each police officer took a turn trying to knock me out with one punch.
Svi policajci su se izmjenjivali i pokušavali me onesvijestiti sa jednim udarcem.
Every time I went to blackout,
Svaki put kad bi se onesvijestio,
it was like somebody shook me and said, "Do not fall asleep."
isto kao da me neko protresao i govorio nemoj zaspati.
The cops took that as a challenge to hit me some more, joking that I was like the Walking Dead, I couldn't go down.
Policajci su to shvatili kao nekakav izazov. Govorili su kao da sam mrtvac koji hoda i nema šanse da me mogu uspavati, da me mogu onesvijestiti.
They took me to jail.
Odveli su me u zatvor.
Didn't charge me with anything, but in jail, the women police then beat me.
Nisu me optužili ni za što, ali ponovno u zatvoru jedna žena policajka me je ponovno istukla.
I was released the next day,
Pustili su me sljedeći dan,
as if nothing happened.
kao da se ništa nije ni dogodilo.
That trauma changed me for the rest of my life.
I ta trauma me promijenila za cijeli život.
Instead of going to rehab,
Umjesto da sam otišao na rehabilitaciju,
I was scared to leave my house.
bojao sam se napustiti kuću.
I lived like that for about a year and a half, 2 years,
Tako sam živio 1,5 do 2 dana,
continuously getting high,
stalno se drogirao,
the voices getting worse,
glasovi su postajali sve gori
and eventually the voices turned into the voices of the people I loved.
i na posljedku ti glasovi su postali glasovi ljudi koje volim.
I would hear my sisters and mothers, aunts and cousins, all women, as if they were being tortured and raped.
Čuo bi svoje sestre, svoju majku, svoje tetke, kao da njihovi glasovi, kao da im se događa da ih neko siluje.
Screaming for me to help them.
One bi vrištale, ti glasovi bi vrištali i tražili moju pomoć.
I thought it was all real.
I ja sam stvarno vjerovao da je to stvarnost.
I would make my family FaceTime me.
Tjerao sam svoju obitelj da me zovu preko Fejsa.
After hours of scouring the city looking for them.
nakon što bi lutao gradom satima i tražio ih,
just to make sure that it wasn't real.
samo da se uvjerim da to nije stvarno.
Eventually, my family wouldn't answer my calls
Na posljedku moja obitelj je prestala odgovarati na pozive,
because they just couldn't deal with it anymore.
jer se više nisu mogli nositi s tim.
They still loved me,
I dalje su me voljeli,
just from afar.
ali iz daleka.
So again, it was time to go to rehab
Dakle, opet je bilo vrijeme za krenuti na rehabilitaciju,
because at that point now I had picked out my casket.
jer u tom trenutku ja sam izabrao svoj kovčeg.
By then, I had completely lost faith in God, humanity, and myself.
U tom trenutku sam već izgubio vjeru u Boga, u ljudskost i naravno i samog sebe.
So I found the Salvation Army,
Pronašao sam Vojsku spasa,
a Christian-based program
jedan program baziran na kršćanstvu
that pushed me away from God.
koji me odgurao od Boga.
I went through multiple programs that year,
Te godine sam prošao više različitih programa rehabilitacije,
just trying to combat whatever evil had got a hold of me.
samo da se vratim, da odbacim što god zlo me je zadesilo.
I learned a lot in rehab.
Naučio sam puno na rehabilitaciji.
I learned that drugs are in rehab and drugs are everywhere.
Naučio sam da u centrima za rehabilitaciju ima droge i da droge ima u biti svugdje.
I learned how to work a system and not a program.
Naučio sam kako prevariti sustav, a ne slijediti program.
I learned that most people don't know how to love themselves, not only most people don't love themselves and don't know how to love you, which isn't their fault.
Mnogi ljudi zapravo ne znaju voljeti samog sebe, ne znaju voljeti tebe, a nije to njihova krivica.
But I also learned that I had a lot of support.
Da imam dosta potpore.
Naučio sam da imam dosta potpore
So eventually I completed program,
i napokon završio sam program
left thinking I'm cured,
i otišao sam i mislio sam ja sam izliječen.
and then I relapsed.
I onda sam ponovno pao.
My cousin in Virginia
Moja rođakinja u Virginiji
would reach out to me and say,
mi se javila i rekla,
the voices aren't real, that's the devil.
glasovi nisu stvarni, to je đavao.
There was no way she could have known that I was hearing voices again or I had relapsed.
Nema šanse da je ona mogla znati da ja ponovno čujem glasove, ni da sam ponovo pao u drogu.
Again, I attributed this to the spells,
I ponovo sam to pripisao onim čaranjima.
and I was so wrong.
I bio sam tako u krivu.
She had mentioned leaving the country to go to a rehab somewhere else.
Ona je spomenula da bi možda bilo dobro napustiti zemlju i otići na rehabilitaciju negdje drugo.
And asked if I was willing to do that.
I pitala me jesam li spreman to napraviti.
As I was homeless and running out of money quickly,
Kako sam bio beskućnik i novac je brzo nestajao,
but more importantly, ready to do anything,
a još više, još važnije, bio sam spreman napraviti bilo što
to not be where I was or live that life and save my life.
da ne nastavim sa životom kakav sam živio, da se maknem sa tog mjesta.
I immediately said yes.
I odmah sam pristao.
So the pandemic hit,
I onda je započela pandemija
and this trip that she had talked about was put off for a year.
i ovo putovanje o kom je ona pričala se odgodilo za 1 godinu.
A to putovanje zapravo je, moramo malo skratiti priču jer ćemo i ovaj prvi dio, Toni, mi svakako skraćivati, ovo se tebi sad obraćam. Znači, to putovanje o kojem je zapravo bilo riječ je bilo putovanje u Međugorje, ali moramo spomenuti kako Odi zapravo i nije znao što je Međugorje niti što se događa u Međugorju. Zanima me kako je se onda našao ovdje u ovom svetištu Kraljice Mira i može li se prisjetiti tih prvih svojih iskustava dolaska ovdje u Međugorje?
So the trip that you are speaking about, it's a trip to Medjugorje, but at that time you didn't know that you are coming to Medjugorje, you didn't know anything about it. So can you remember how you felt when you first arrived, these first moments here in
A znamo da je
village?
imao i poteškoća pri samom dolasku, mislim da je i putovnica bila izgubljena i
And there were some difficulties also when you were arriving. You lost your passport and something happened.
Yeah, so the week I never heard of Medjugorje. I didn't know I was going to Medjugorje. Didn't know what Our Lady was or what that meant, even though I knew what the Virgin Mary was. The week before our trip, I was put into a psych ward because I was robbed. The person that robbed me took all of my belongings, my passport, my ID, my vaccination card, which was a requirement to travel.
Prije dolaska u Međugorje nisam znao ništa o Međugorju, nisam znao što se tu događa, nisam znao za Gospu, naravno znao sam da Gospa postoji, ali nisam znao što je tu u Međugorju. A tjedan dana prije nego smo planirali doći u Međugorje, opljačkali su me, oduzeli su mi sve dokumente, putovnicu, covid potvrdu, bio sam bez svega.
My cousin had reached out to Bob Canton, to Mary TV, the Pilgrims I didn't know at the time, and multiple other sources to start praying for intercession.
Moja rodica se tada obratila Bobu Cantonu sa Mary TV-a i mnogim drugim grupama koje su zapravo počele moliti da bi ja uspio doći ovdje. Ja nisam znao za to.
I was released a day and a half from the psych ward after seeing a judge and a lot of work.
Bio sam smješten na psihijatriju i pustili su me sa psihijatrije, ali bilo je još puno posla za uraditi.
I had been praying in a prayer group in the psych ward, which was against my beliefs at the time.
Tamo sam molio u molitvenoj grupi, ali to je bilo protiv mojih uvjerenja u to vrijeme kad sam bio.
When I got home, my roommate said, "Call your cousin, somebody turned in your passport."
I kad sam se vratio kući, rekli su mi, zovni svoju rodicu, netko je donio tvoju putovnicu.
At the time, I'm wearing the shirt that I'm wearing now, which is a shirt of Our Lady of Guadalupe.
U to vrijeme sam nosio majicu koju nosim i sada, Gospe Guadalupske.
Which one of the nurses gave me from the donation pile in the psych ward.
Jedna od medicinskih sestara mi je samo dala sa hrpe donacija koje su tamo bile.
I didn't know at the time, but Our Lady was calling and guided me even then.
Nisam znao, ali čak i tada Gospa me zvala i vodila me.
And way before, obviously.
I još puno prije, očito.
Of all the things to be turned in, my passport, my vaccination card, everything I needed to get on a plane happened by the minute, to the minute.
Od svih stvari koje sam izgubio, moja putovnica i moja covid putovnica su vraćene i to baš u trenutak kad je, u minutu kad mi je to trebalo da bi krenuo na put.
By the grace of God, I got on that plane.
Uz Božju milost ukrcao sam se na taj avion.
And was scared beyond a doubt.
I bio sam jako uplašen, da ne mogu objasniti kako.
I thought I was going to a cult meeting.
Mislio sam da se ponovo idem sastajati s nekim kultom.
Even though little did I know I was in a cult prior to that for 25 years.
A u biti nisam ni bio svjestan da sam prije toga 25 godina bio u kultu.
The first 2 days in Medjugorje, in my mind, I thought, cool, yay, a trip to Europe for the first time.
Prva 2 dana u Međugorju mislio sam, pa cool, tu sam u Europi, na putovanju u Europi.
I looked around and saw people I would never have spoken to.
Pogledao sam okolo i vidio sam ljude s kojima nikad ne bi pričao inače.
Who in my mind I thought were looking at me, oh, look at that weird guy.
U mojim mislima ja sam mislila da oni misle, pogledaj ovog čudaka.
He doesn't belong here, he stands out, doesn't he?
On uopće ne pripada ovamo, on baš odskače, zar ne?
What egoism.
Kako sam bio sebičan.
Slowly but surely I started to see and feel the love in Medjugorje.
Polako, ali sigurno počeo sam osjećati ljubav u Međugorju.
Every day that I was here, I experienced a miracle.
Svaki dan ovdje iskusio sam jedno čudo.
I saw all of the ones that people talk about.
Vidio sam sva ona čuda o kojima ljudi inače pričaju.
And so many more that nobody will ever know of.
I toliko više, još više o kojima ljudi neće niti znati.
But I just kept thinking,
Nekako sam nastavila razmišljati, da,
until I went to an apparition at Yvonne's.
dok jednom nisam otišao na ukazanje sa Ivanom.
And at that apparition, when the church doors closed,
Za vrijeme tog ukazanja, kad su se vrata kapelice zatvorila,
for the first time in a long time,
po prvi put u jako dugo vremena,
I heard those evil screams again.
ponovno sam čuo one zlobne krikove.
Instead of screams of torture,
I to su bili krikovi mučenja.
it was screams of anger that I didn't belong, and how dare they take me in there and take me back.
Bili su to krikovi ljutnje. Kako me mogu dovući tu? Ja sam bio ljut.
That I was lost and belonged to the darkness.
Ja sam bio izgubljen i pripadao sam tami.
When Our Lady arrived to speak to Yvonne,
Kad je bilo vrijeme kad je Gospa došla razgovarati s Ivanom,
she said he is a being of light and he belongs with us.
osjetio sam on pripada svjetlosti.
That was the last time I heard those evil voices.
I to je bilo posljednji put da sam čuo te zle glasove.
People talk about the fear of God,
Ljudi govore o strahu od Boga,
and that day changed my life and put the love of God into me.
a taj dan je promijenio moj život i stavio Boga, ljubav Božju u mene.
The kindness and the path of Jesus and the teachings of Jesus continue to be shown to me every minute that I was in this beautiful land.
Isusova ljubav i učenje, ono što Isus uči, mi se pokazuje svaki dan dok sam ovdje u ovom prekrasnom mjestu.
It was more powerful than any spell or hold the devil ever had on me.
To je bilo puno snažnije od bilo kakvog čaranja koje sam radio prije.
I was shown how much I worried my mother and how much she truly loved me.
Pokazao mi je kako me majka voli, kako me zaista voli.
Every struggle I ever had was worth it because I would not have experienced Our Lady's love otherwise.
Svaka patnja koju sam prošao je se isplatila.
Even
Bez te patnje ne bi osjetio ljubav, Gospinu ljubav.
even though her love was always there.
Iako je njena ljubav bila stalno tu,
This place is heaven on earth.
ovo mjesto je nebo na zemlji.
These people that live here are God's earth's angels, for lack of a better term.
Ljudi koji ovdje žive su anđeli Božji.
My stepdad used to always tell me, you lack humility, you need to be humble.
Moj poočin je uvijek govorio, ti nemaš poniznosti, trebaš biti ponizniji.
The humiliation of not knowing how to thank these kind, beautiful souls I met here.
Poniznosti jer ne znam kako izraziti zahvalnost što sam upoznao ta divna stvorenja ovdje.
Humbled me beyond words.
Biti ponizan iznad svake riječi.
I don't have regrets,
Nemam nikakvog žaljenja.
but I wish I could change a lot of things.
Volio bi da mogu promijeniti puno stvari,
And since I can't,
ali pošto ne mogu,
I try to live as close to the life of Jesus as possible, and I fail daily.
zato pokušavam biti što bliže Isusu svaki dan, ali svaki dan i padne.
Medjugorje is home.
Međugorje je dom,
The people here are family.
ljudi ovdje su obitelj
We are all loved by God,
i svi smo voljeni od Boga.
especially when you don't think it's possible.
Posebno onda kad mislimo da to uopće nije moguće.
Što se događa nakon povratka iz Međugorja, kad ste se vratili doma? Znamo evo da ste se ove godine za Uskrs i krizmali nakon toliko godina, znači vjera u Boga se vratila, počeo si moliti. Sve ono što je bilo prije se promijenilo u tvom životu. Kako sada živiš? Kako je Međugorje utjecalo na tebe? Kako je došlo do toga da si se odlučio konačno i krizmati nakon toliko dugo vremena?
What happened after you returned home? we know that you were confirmed in this year. How come you decided to do that as well? Can you tell us a little bit what's happening now?
So when I left here, I thought God healed me, which He did in a sense.
Kad sam otišao odavde, mislio sam da me Bog izliječio. A zapravo na neki način i jeste.
But God works through us and for us, but we have to work as well.
Bog radi kroz nas, radi za nas, ali i mi moramo raditi.
I went to Mass daily.
Išao sam svaki dan na misu.
I knew then that I wanted to finish my confirmation.
Tada sam već znao da želim završiti proces, da se želim krizmati.
And I thought, God wants me to now heal people.
I znao sam da Bog želi da sad ja ozdravljam ljude.
So I started working on others and forgot to work on myself and relapsed.
I počeo sam raditi za druge, a onda sam zaboravio na sebe i opet sam pao.
I had to leave California to get back into the life of God, to lead back to my confirmation.
Morao sam napustiti Kaliforniju da bi se završio proces da se krizmam i da bi nastavio svoj život.
And because of Medjugorje, I was able to do that.
A upravo zbog Međugorja sam to i mogao.
For the first time ever, I didn't start casting spells.
Po prvi put u životu prestao sam čarati.
I awoke and did the Peace Rosary.
Budio sam se sa krunicom mira.
Prayed for intercession.
Molio za zagovor.
And did the Rosary daily.
Svaki dan sam molio krunicu.
Even if it wasn't a full Rosary or how it should have been prayed.
Čak i ako to ne bi bila cijela krunica ili način na koji bi zapravo krunicu trebao moliti.
Because of the drugs, but I knew if I just prayed every day, God would come for me.
Zbog korištenja droge, ali svejedno sam znao ako nastavim, ako molim, Bog će mi pomoći.
And He did.
I zaista jest.
And I moved to Virginia in December.
U prosincu sam se preselio u Virginiju.
I started confirmation at St. Dominic's in California.
Započeo sam proces za krizmu u Virginiji.
And I finished in Virginia with St. Benedict as my confirmation saint.
I završio sam u Virginiji, a Sveti Benedikt je moj krizmani svetac.
Ironically, the priest that created the exorcism, I chose to help me combat the devils that I stood with for a very long time.
Ironično, svećenik kojem sam došao da uradi egzorcizam, me je zapravo krizmao.
I work hard daily to stay positive and guide people through God, not through to God, not through preaching, but through my actions.
Svakodnevno sam jako puno radio da vodim ljude Bogu, ali ne kroz propovijedanje, već kroz moja djela.
Our society does not believe in organized religion, which I understand.
Naše društvo ne vjeruje u organiziranu vjeru, što mogu razumjeti.
Regardless, God believes in us.
Unatoč tome, Bog vjeruje u nas.
So if I lead by example with love, compassion, and empathy as Christ did,
ali ako živim pun suosjećanja, ako živim onako kako je Isus živio,
maybe I can help show people that God is real and He loves them.
Možda mogu pokazati ljudima da je Bog živ i da mogu ih dovesti k njemu.
I've been told since Medjugorje and moving to Virginia that I am a being of light. What would Audie do? And I say no.
Od kad sam došao u Međugorje, čuo sam više puta, budi svjetlo, što bi napravio Audie? Ali ja kažem ne.
I'm just a human being who is Christian, trying to live as little sin as possible.
Ali im kažem ne, jer ja sam samo jedan kršćanin koji pokušava živjeti što je moguće manje grijeha u životu.
And instead of getting angry, which I do,
I umjesto da se ljutim, što se znam se naljutiti,
I try to just love and respond with kindness or not at all.
pokušavam uzvratiti ljubavlju, ljubaznošću ili uopće ne uzvratiti.
I fail daily
Svaki dan padnem
and
pogriješim.
probably will till I die.
I vjerojatno će tako biti dok ne umrem.
But that doesn't mean I can't succeed in the end.
Ali to ne znači da ne mogu uspjeti na kraju.
Evo ponovno si ovdje s nama u Međugorju, znači ovo drugi put nakon skoro pa godinu dana. Možeš li usporediti možda ova dva hodočašća, ono svoje prvo na kojem si zapravo i doživio svoje obraćanje i evo sada ovdje kao pravi onaj katolik, obraćeni katolik, ponovno dolaziš u Međugorje. Kakva su tvoja iskustva ovaj put?
Can you compare these two pilgrimages, the first one and now the second one when you come as a Catholic, as someone who converted? What is different?
I don't know how I understood what Juanita said, but I kind of did. It's completely different. I thought coming back, the miracles would be the same, and it is in the sense of peace.
Ne znam kako bi objasnio, ali mislio sam da kad se vratim da će biti isto i na neki način jeste u smislu mira.
But it's completely different. Last year I was healed every day.
Ali zapravo je skroz drugačije. Prošle godine sam bio ozdravljan svaki dan.
Last year was the pilgrimage of healing. This is the pilgrimage of growth.
Prošle godine to je bilo hodočašće ozdravljenja, a ove godine hodočašće rasta.
Last year I learned who I wanted to be as a Christian.
Prošle godine sam naučio tko želim biti kao kršćanin.
This year I'm learning how.
Ove godine učim kako to biti.
I struggled the first few days
Mučio sam se prvih par dana
because it was different.
jer je bilo drugačije.
Like most people, I was afraid of change.
Kao i mnogi ljudi, zapravo sam se bojao promjene.
I thought I needed that same experience.
Mislio sam da mi treba ono potpuno isto iskustvo.
And what I learned
A što sam naučio?
is that God doesn't give us what we want, but what we need.
Da nam Bog ne daje ono što mi želimo, nego ono što nam treba.
And in order to grow in God, I needed a different experience.
I da bi rastao u Bogu, trebam drugačija iskustva.
And that's exactly what I'm getting.
I to je upravo što dobivam.
Htjela sam samo spomenuti kako će znači svoje iskustvo svaki put obogaćivati svaki put kada bude dolazio i produbljivati svoju vjeru u Boga. Evo, očekujemo ga ponovno s nama za Festival mladih ovdje u Međugorju. Tada će se dosta toga sigurno promijeniti, njegova vjera će sigurno rasti. Evo, ovo je jedan mali dio onoga što bi Odi htio podijeliti s nama, ali mi zaista zbog naših radijskih minuta smo ograničeni, pa ćemo Odija evo na koncu upitati, budući evo nas Gospa poziva ovdje već 41 godinu, šalje nam svoje poruke, koja bi bila tvoja Odi poruka svima onima koji slušaju sada program Radio Postaje Mir Međugorje, što bi im ti mogao poručiti, koja bi bila tvoja poruka?
Odi, do you have a message for all people who are listening now? What is the message, your message from this pilgrimage?
My message is pause.
Moja poruka bi bila sastanite,
Be silent.
budite tiho,
Be love.
budite voljeni
And lead with your heart.
i vodite se svojim srcem.
No matter